cause with Midnight Lights Gaming, bringing you, I have been playing the Forspoken demo quite a bit now, and it's really cold where I am, so this is what you're going to be seeing today. I've been playing it for a few days, on and off, and I made the terrible life decision today to watch, I don't know, more than any human should, like reactions and cringe videos to the Forspoken trailer and some of the demo stuff. And it's after playing the demo, you know, because when I saw that stuff, I was like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem that bad. Like, I just think that was a really bad marketing move for them to play that, to make that ad on Twitter. And I'll link to that in the show notes. But yeah, the hate's gone too far, even from that preview. And then, you know, it's still like overflowing in like some toxic, gross ways after now that this demo's come out. And don't get me, let me just pause it. I am not a Forspoken like fanboy. I don't know that much about this game. I'm excited about a female person of color protagonist. I'm excited about magical swords of fire. I'm excited about an open world, mission-based, fish out of water game. And yeah, I'm not saying the dialogue's the best I've ever heard. So let me just be clear about that. I'm just saying the cringe has gone too far. So I've got some notes here on the things that I think the folks cringing have gotten wrong. Some of the criticism that I think is right, and then like a lot that's like, yo, let's find out, like TBD. I know we work with what we have in terms of deciding whether we buy games or not, but if that preview prevents you from buying this game that is otherwise quite fun, I don't know, man. So anyway, some updates. Push to 1,000 subs is still going on. The second I make a single dime from anything, tips, after I get to 1,000 subs, anything, 50% is going to go to a charity that we choose as a subscriber community. Now, there's no scams, no jokes, no nothing. Like, I'm going to upload receipts, and we're going to decide together which charity we want to give to. So, it's not a shtick. I'm just trying to do good, and I love making these videos, and that's one thing I can do. The other update, let's see. Yeah, I put out a bunch of... I basically played the full demo and the Forspoken...
Yep.
Sorry, I got some tangos here, y'all.
Okay.
Yeah, so that Let's Play was fun. I've been enjoying this demo, but I will be very clear. There are some very spot-on criticisms that I think are not at all related to that trailer on Twitter, but rather, you know, I'll get into it. Stick around, check it out. No other big announcements. Again, the 1,000 subs is hopefully by the end of the year. Probably not, but maybe. So like and subscribe, and let's get into the stuff that feels not so great. So here are, in the way too long I was watching videos, here are the things that, were some of the cringy criticism. So the first one is all about that ad and Frey's dialogue with Cuff being like, sarcastic, too edgy. What were some other things? Rough around the edges, too quippy. And I do think that ad was like a marketing mistake. Like, you shouldn't have your main character marketing the game. But I don't think the dialogue is that bad. I think, and I'll try, you know, as we go throughout this, I'll try and stop so you can hear some of it. But again, I'm not saying this is the best dialogue I've ever heard. I'm saying that this is like a young black woman living in New York City who's been transported to another world. Like, this is how people talk, y'all. There's a lot of dudes, particularly white cis dudes, it seems like, reviewing this game in ways that feel real gross. So you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I get the cringe. I didn't love that ad at all. But I think, like, it's gotten to the point in a lot of ways that just feels like attacking someone who's confident and young and a person of color. When, like, even if we think about sarcastic and quippy, like, think about Deadloop. Like, Cole didn't get that kind of criticism. He was a black guy. There are so many things to criticize about Kratos, like, as a human. And yeah, people, like, give him a lot of grace, and his trespasses, you know, aren't a big deal. Now, I will say the writing's great. There's a lot TBD with, like, the writing and the story here. I'm pretty encouraged by a lot of what I'm seeing in previews, but I get all of that. Like, granted, the writing in that ad was terrible, and some of these interactions between Cuff and Frey are not great, but it doesn't deserve this much cringe. Mainly because I think the other piece of this is we're only seeing this game in, like, a brief snippet. This could be very early in their relationship. They might endear themselves to one another and have a moving relationship in the future. Like, and this is like a tense time for them where they're, like, kind of going back and forth and the dialogue changes with each realm. I don't know. I think these are great questions. I don't have the answers to, but yeah, folks are real fast to cringe with stuff. And Curious Corduroy, and I'll try and shout out them in the notes, like, made a great point too around some of the dialogue stuff, and kind of talking about how cringe has become just this thing that people do when they don't like something. And of course, like, you know, think about how many gamers are white folks in their 20s, 30s, 40s, like a 20-something millennial, you know, a 20-something person in New York, you know, like, this game's trying something different, and when difference equals cringe, I think that's messed up. I don't think that's how we show up as gamers, appreciating, like, what pushes the envelope. I think it starts to just feel like there's only one type of game, one type of character, and one type of way of doing things. Again, I'm not saying Frey's perfect. I'm not saying the dialogue is perfect. I'm just saying it doesn't warrant the cringe that's happened. So I'll pause when I hear some of the back and forth between Cuff, and we'll talk about it. But let me also say, like, clearly they've gotten the message, and there's media about this, but you can change how much Cuff dialogues with Frey. See if I can find it again. Vibration, probably not. Display, I don't think it would be here. And I'll talk about brightness in a second too. You'd think it would be here, but it's not. Maybe it's accessibility. Battle setting, Cuff compass. I haven't messed with this. Okay, so I have Cuff chat frequency on low. There's default. I'm going to put it on high just because that will ensure we'll get plenty of dialogue to talk about, as that is the biggest gripe. That's just kind of sad at this point. Like, you know, the gaming community is big, so I don't want to, like, say responses to this trailer on Twitter are the end all be all by any means. Okay, let's do that. So we should get plenty. The next thing I'm going to talk about is some of the combat. One person in particular said the combat was bad because there's no verticality. You're just kind of on the ground. You don't have options. Well, this, as well as many other people who were giving feedback based on the demo and cringing, like, clearly did not spend very much time with the game and figuring out the parkour and combat system. So I'm going to...
You don't make moves. You just sit there being a prick.
See, that's what I mean. Like, she's in this weird world. She got this cuff strapped to her. Like, how do you expect her to talk? And, like, I don't know, there's something about, like, policing and the free, the like, Yeah, just wanting and expecting a certain type of character. Now, plenty of people out there are criticizing her and I think love other female characters, but again...
Brokenness doesn't feel so bad.
Not for you, maybe. Normal human beings, on the other hand.
It's interesting...
I am a normal human being, thank you very much.
I think that was funny. Shit, I lost my train of thought. Fuck it. Let's go show some verticality. Pop! Pop! Look at that. It's a little verticality.
Plenty more where that
I'd imagine you'll have this wrapped up pretty quickly.
I don't think they're vulnerable to this, so let me... And you just saw a little verticality there.
Sweet salvation awaits, friend.
Oh, verticality from getting my ass kicked. Well, that was amazing. I don't even know how I did that. But of course, the reason... The bullshit around verticality is just not understanding that you can... While holding R2 and charging your attack, you can press circle and like dodge and avoid using parkour. And it's particularly effective once you figure out you actually have to really like lock on to tangos to like prevent the camera from doing weird stuff on you.
Well, finish the job.
I'm not using any support spells.
should do the trick.
That was okay. That got me though. Get a little life.
Try this one. Quick taste.
See, I'm okay with that. Quick taste. And then the other thing people are going to say is, you know, they get tired of the dialogue, which, you know, there's a setting to change that. And like, oh my god, how many times did... And I know I've said this a few times already, but like, how many times did Atreus say, you're on fire, but you probably already know that? You know, and speaking of that, Atreus is maybe one of the most sarcastic, like, illogical, putting people in danger, and people fucking love Atreus. I mean, he was up for an award. So, I don't know, man. It feels a little double standardy, but I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying, like, we need to poke holes at when people see something that's not typical and criticize it this much. It's not a problem to criticize the dialogue. Like I said, I don't love it, but I do think it's a problem to bring this like toxic level of like, yeah, like going so far as to call her a B word, going so far as to like, yeah, well, you know, rough around the edges and a potty mouth. Like, I mean, think of all of the male protagonists out there and their potty mouth, sarcastic, intensely potty mouth ways. Man, I just don't know, man. All right, let's find some more tangos so I can show a little more verticality to put that one to bed. And I think there are some not too far away here. Yeah, here we go. This is actually one of my favorite places to play. So interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure these, yeah, they use stamina. So
What do you think?
all right, more verticality. So just, yeah, something important. I had to like sort of figure out. So yeah, anyway, there are a couple things you can do for verticality. You're charging your weapon, you hold R2, you press circle, and she goes airborne. That's one thing. Now, there's some cool stuff you can do whilst... oh, there it is. That was kind of vertical. See if I can do it against a tango. No, I can't. So anyway, hopefully that checks the verticality box. Okay, so some other things are like combat flow, which I will say two things. One is, I think the hate's gone too far with this, but I also am like still figuring out, like the jury's still out for me a little bit, but from this demo, I will say, now that I've played as much as I have, I think the flow is great. Now, let me show you some things that have helped me with the combat flow. But again, I go back to like Red Dead Redemption and that fucking weapon wheel and how long I spent in there. So I'm just a little slow to be like, this is too far. Like, this game is too far with the flow. So the criticism...
It's tough going.
An ambush here could spell serious trouble. You need to keep moving.
Easy for you to say.
I don't know. I think you didn't need that last line. But I don't have a problem with it. Okay, back to the task at hand. What are we talking about? Flow. Two things that help me figure out flow. One is right or left on the D-pad will change your magics. You probably already know you have two magics, Sela's and Frey's. I'm guessing you get this later in the game. And you starting with Frey's magic. Left and right switch which magic you're using. Now, the enemies, the Tangos, they have vulnerability. They typically have vulnerabilities, or one magic they're more predisposed to, or are hurt more by if you use it. So you do need to change. And there are plenty of fights even in this demo where one group of baddies has a certain vulnerability and another does not. Or it has a different vulnerability, and you got to switch around and move around, which is a cool concept. It's not as well done as Tsushima, but it's just this idea that you need to switch around. And like I think about Far Cry 6 and the flow in that too. Like that was silly because they had all these different rounds for different enemies, but then the like hollowed rounds were all you really needed. So other games have been worse than this as far as I'm concerned. And there is an element of strategy around combat, particularly in hard mode. But so yeah, you hold R1 and you pick your magic for your R2 button. Now there's a base attack, which is always the sword with this magic, and always just a single shot rock shotter on this one. That's your base magic. Now when you hold R2, you do different things based on this wheel. So yeah, you got to switch that around a little bit. But once I'm much faster at it now than I was before. So you also have your L2 magic, which doesn't have a base attack. You have to choose what support magic you're going to use. And that's just holding L1 and you're in the weapon wheel and you can choose. Now, some settings that have really helped me that I really like, hopefully I can find them very easily for you. I'm pretty sure they're all accessibility. One of them is that your support spell will change automatically after you use it. But let's talk about this one. We'll start with this one and then the other one. So one thing you can do particularly early on to help with like flow stuff and just get really used to this weapon wheel system is you can switch the spell switching menu display to hold, toggle, hold, or toggle. Spell switching menu display, hold. Do I have this right? Let's go to toggle. No, this isn't right, because it would be... This isn't right. Let me find the right setting for it. Oh. Okay, so toggle is you press R1 and it's there, and you can choose. So that would really slow things down, which again, maybe early on really works for you. Then you have to press R1 again to get out of it. So that's one setting you can mess with, but as far as I'm concerned, that's going to make the flow worse. So hold, that means you just hold the button. And it will bring up the weapon wheel. Okay, let's try controls. Horizontal wireless controller vibrator. Sorry, I should have prepped some of this for y'all. Okay, automatically support spell switching. So when this is on, you can see this in the upper right, you'll automatically switch to support spells that aren't currently on cooldown. So it will just rotate through your support spells to whatever is not on cooldown, and you don't have to spend as much time in the weapon wheel. And again, as I've played more, I know the rotation, and I'm more able to be like, no, I don't want the next one. I'm going to go find it. But again, the more you get used to it, I spend very little time in the weapon wheel in a particular combat once I know vulnerabilities. The other thing you can do to help prevent what I guess you might call like flow problems or like combat flow problems is you can change to the spell switching to none, where time goes as normal. One is that time slows down quite a bit, and then another one which is full pause, which is what I've liked as I've been getting used to the game. I might switch to default, but I think I'm going to start on hard mode, and I might do this to like, I might stay on full pause. So let's just, let me show you this. This is what I typically do. So I'm like parkouring around, I hit R1, and everything stops. So let's go to the other setting and go to slow down, and I'll parkour. You know, that's like very reasonable. You got to use the right joystick though, which makes it a little funkier since you're holding circle to do parkour. But anyway, I think the float's fine. And again, it's frustrating not because I think it's perfect and people aren't respecting a perfect thing. It's frustrating because it's gone so far and people like this game is trash because the combat flow is trash. I'm just like, yo. The demo could be better too, but like, it's also a demo. Like, anyway, we're gonna get into more stuff like that. So we've talked about flow. Demo drops you in the middle. So some people, I guess, maybe wanted the demo to start at the beginning. I'm not sure. My sense was that the demo, you don't have story to work from here. So the interactions between Cuff feel more arbitrary and confusing. Like, why don't they like each other? We just get that little video in the beginning that really doesn't tell us a whole lot. And so I get that as a criticism, but again, this is where I come back to the hate's gone too far. It's a demo. I bet they created this for, you know, quality assurance folks, for people to experiment and play in, and then release it to us because they stand by their product. And I think there's a lot to stand by here. Like, I get why they'd release the demo. I get why they might feel like they need to because the hate from that marketing thing they did on Twitter was, you know, didn't go super hot. So it would be nice to have a little more story to like put some of these boss fights, this realm we're in, the different fights, the different memories, the monuments to justice. Yes, that will contextualize things more, but again, my expectations for the game are high. My expectations for the demo are like, let me get a feel for the combat and traversal and the character. But like, I have no illusions here. Like, I don't know anything about Frey or Cuff. I don't know anything about why we're here, what's going on here, what magic brought me here, what magic's gonna get me out of here. Like, we don't have a lot of story, which is a fair criticism because it's true, or I guess I should say I get the criticism because it's true. The problem is, like, it's a demo. So it's not that I don't have high expectations, just like what I'm hoping for out of a demo is not like the full story, you know, like, or enough story to be able to understand everything.
It's definitely not the most welcoming.
All right, I've got one more. We're going to revisit Frey's potty mouth. Then we're going to talk about one piece of feedback, which was that it was weird. I won't spend too much on that, because what? What? Switching spells we talked about. The frame rate I'll talk about, and brightness I'll talk about. Okay. Bop, 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 ba bow. Bow, 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 ba bow. Doing okay. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. This one feels... The comments about Frey's attitude and sarcasm feel a bit sexist at times, or at least I should say, like, I think if that's your reaction to Frey and Cuff, like, there's some examining to do there, because if I wonder, I just think it's worth asking yourself, like, would you hold a male character to that standard? Not being sarcastic, not talking back to their sidekick, hello, like Mimir. Everything, I've been playing a lot of God of War, that's why I keep going to that. But also, like, it's gotten a ton of accolades. So I just think, you know, we got to ask ourselves when these cringe moments happen, like,
Well, if you
What
want
else have you
something
cringed at?
footwear.
You know how hard
I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I think it's just I think it's important to ask that question. So that feels a bit sexist at times. The other thing that feels quite sexist is people trashing nail polish and jewelry. Like, how many ornamented, like, think of Elden Ring, think of, like, all of the armor on male characters that are like ornamental and beautiful and elegant, and like people are like, but nail polish, like, no, that is too far. Buffs from nail polish are trash, and it's just sort of like, wait a second, you get buffs from all kinds of things. I mean, in God of War, you get it from a pommel on an axe. Why is nail polish so outlandish? And again, when we think about difference as bad, like, this is the question I think folks need to ask themselves, like, do I not like this because it's different? I haven't played that much with nail polish being the thing that gives me a buff, as opposed to, like, and there are all kinds of jewelry and armor, like, that's a Venn diagram, like, there's a lot of overlap with that. So let me...
It's awfully dusty in here.
Actually get out of this, although I will go in there for the necklace. But let me tell you why I'm super psyched about a lot of the gear stuff, including the nails. One is, I think it's in some ways this game is courageous. A young person of color, woman lead, who's confident, self-assured, and like willing to talk back. I think that's brave. Or I think that's like a good direction for video games. Like, we got to keep we got to keep making room for different kinds of games, different kinds of characters. But I also think, like, within that, you got to try different things, and to criticize something just because it's nail polish and, dare I say, feminine, though certainly not only, that's where I start to be like, I don't know, there's a lot of things that people wear and use on the, when it's a masculine identified character that are like quite ornamental. Oh, God, think of Ghost of Tsushima. Think about like those different armors and how like elaborate, beautiful and elegant and well crafted, it's like, so if this, what is it? I just think it's important to ask, what is it about nail polish you don't like? Because, we only have a few that we get to see here, but there are some pretty great options here. And I think you could actually unlock this one later. But again, it's stylization, personalization, and you get to kind of, do the roleplay part of Frey, where you get to kind of manage certain parts of her personality, and buffs coming from that, I just think are great. It's frustrating that the hate's gone as far as it has on this. So I don't have any qualms, but I think this is great. I wish more games gave you the chance to not just wear nail polish, but for those to buff you, give you good stuff like killer blows, generate shockwaves, and all spell damage. Okay, anyway, let me go to gear. So you've got a cloak, but the thing that the feedback, what was it? Ornamental jewelry? I don't know, man. I just have jewelry written down, but it was the fact that it was jewelry, not that. So you can see these necklaces, and there are some that are, I don't know, more bro-y. Like, you want a bro-y necklace? Cool. It looks like you've got some options here. You want something that, again, it depends on who you are and society and all that, but like, that's more femme, you can choose that too. So I don't know, man. I really like these options. I think it's cool that you have options for jewelry and customization. I absolutely love the cloaks. Those are, the nails and the cloaks are my favorite. The jewelry is great. I just think these cloaks look really good, particularly these two. So anyway, we'll check that box. Nail polish, buffs, jewelry, don't be sexist, you get the idea. I think we've talked enough about Frey and Cuff. Someone said it was weird. And again, I get it. Like, you make a cringe video, especially during a time where a game's trending, you're going to get a ton of views. And, you know, feed the beast that is the broy side of the broy sexist side of gaming. Like, feeding that beast gets clicks. And people are really cringing, and I get that to an extent too. But just calling it weird, like, you gotta do a little more work than that. Gotta do a little more work than that. We talked about switching spells. Okay, frame rate and delay. Yeah, let's talk about that. So there was a couple videos, and one of them corrected themselves that was like, hey, this game's only in 30 frame rates. That's a real problem for me. It's on the PS5. You gotta have a 60 frame rate. So I'm gonna show you these settings, which I'm sure I should hopefully be able to find a little bit sooner. Yeah, image. So let's read through these, even though my beautiful face is in the way a little bit. So I've been on quality focus, which is a standard setting that focuses on achieving a stable and its 60 frame rate, or if it's not in this, it is going to be in the full game. I forget exactly what Square Enix said. That said, I've been on quality focus. It looks really good. The best way to really think about is like to actually look at Frey. So you get a sense of that. You can kind of see some of the wildlife and flowers, what that looks like. There's a deer in the background. And even though it's majestic and beautiful, it is dangerous. Don't forget that. Let's look at some of the other settings. I haven't really been messing with the ray tracing. I think so. Quality of focus, of course, is like sacrifices some performance. But let's do graphics on the performance focus. So this, I'm pretty sure, is definitely a 30 frame rate, and more responsive to the buttons. But you can kind of see, like, I think this is a problem. I think not having a 60 frame rate and a performance, that's frustrating. And that it looks this bad. Like, yeah, those flowers don't look as good. The deer is, like, way more blurry. Like, you can't really see the gold or the break coming out of it. And that's a problem. I mean, I think that's a problem. I just think, again, that it's gotten to the point where people are just attacking this game. And you have if you want better graphics, you have the option. Like, so many of these problems are fixed in the settings. Which brings us to our next one. And you can see, like, that's pretty responsive. Press circle. Boom. Press circle. Boom. I have, like, no issue with that response rate. Someone was saying it's like a huge delay. It seemed maybe exaggerating it a little bit somehow, but like, I just don't see that. Brightness. This is my last one of where the hate's gone too far, which again, this one is just like, okay, so a lot of screens are different. If brightness is an issue, you can fix that either through your TV or you can fix it here. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, maybe, I guess that, I mean, that's still, I think the issue is that, like, when you look into the distance, like, that haze is, like, way too bright. And, I mean, you can definitely find, like, a good setting for yourself. I shouldn't mess with the gamma settings, maybe. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't see it. We also don't know if, like, that fog lifts. It obviously doesn't affect you. I mean, the thing I will say, and this is a good segue maybe into what things got right. The land is barren. It's not an exciting, magical, curious place. Like, I want to check stuff off the map, and there's a ton of things to do, and that gets me excited. But, like, in Elden Ring, if you looked in any direction at all, it was like, oh my god, what's over there? That's not the case here. The land is barren, the rocks are boring. My hope is that all of the realms are different and they're going to do some fixings. I'll show you one thing that has me excited about a little bit of promise, which is... So see those wildflowers? you know, those all go away when you look from a certain distance, but like when you're walking around, for the most part, those are around. So I'm sort of hoping they're able to bring things to life a little bit that way, or it, you know, it could be that the story kinds of tells us, like, you know, why intentionally this land is barren, and then maybe over time it comes to life as you like continue to do more. The other thing is, you know, I think there were some time and budget issues with this game, so maybe this is where they took a shortcut, and that will be disappointing. Like, that is a gripe. I'm with you. Like, I hear you on this land is barren and not very exciting. It doesn't pique my curiosity for what's around the corner.
Exploit your enemies every week.
So I don't know, man. I guess my only point is
Here it comes.
I'm not great at combat and talking, I'm realizing. Mainly because I don't want to look like a schmo. What's next on here? Wax polish and environment. Well, one thing I will say is actually the animals and the non-animals, the different creatures affected by the break are actually quite cool. I think I can show you in the menu. And this is kind of a thing I like about it, but I also haven't heard anyone like complaining about this. Well, let me see if I can find like an ogre or something. See, even I mean, that's cool, man. The gold, like the fact that the break has this like real gold to it. I mean, I met a mutated one of these that kicked my ass for quite a while. Oh, see, I'm here for what they're doing. That in particular. Let me see if I can find that ogre, because there's one that kind of has this long hair sort of situation. Oh, that's the ogre. Maybe I haven't scanned it yet, because I've definitely gone up against it. Yeah, these I just don't know about. I think there will be a lot to learn. Tanta Prov using sorcerer's powers, so maybe these are... Oh, Tantas underlings, that makes sense. Tantas are like the matriarchs who I think were good but aren't good anymore. Relax, polish, and environment. You got it. Great feedback. I think that's a problem. I'm not excited about the environment. It's barren. It's not as beautiful as so many... I mean, just think about where the bar is with Tsushima and Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West, Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, the thing that's kind of sad, too, is, like, you know, you're slinging these big-ass rocks around, and it does, like, the environment is very static. It's not dynamic. Things don't get impacted. And again, you just think to games where if you throw a bomb, like, you can tell. And that just feels important to me. You know, I like the environment. I also like being able to use more of the environment in combat. Like, I'd love if there was a way to traverse by using the trees or the different things around to be able to do attacks that way. And she's so nimble. It'd be cool to be using her environment more and incorporate that into attacks. Baron, that was beautiful. Another thing that I absolutely agree with, I'll go try and find some combat, is that the camera's too close to her. And I will say the thing that's helped me out a lot with this is targeting. The R3 targeting. It makes a huge difference. That said, what I'm sort of finding when you're doing combat in particular...
Yeah, stay front. Got it.
When you're doing combat in particular...
That'll teach you.
Is that you can't, like, see, there's so little I can see. I'm so close to her, to Frey, that sometimes it's a little frustrating. Pop. So that's the verticality thing I was showing earlier, too. I'm like, that seems fairly vertical to me. Hey, don't throw that rock at me.
I sometimes wonder what you think I'm here for, you know.
Oh, I hate that. Let me kick you, though. Oh, that's so freaking satisfying. Hey. I like that you can kind of, like, dodge out, too. and then kind of scoot back in. Okay, that was one of the cooler things I've done. Ish. I've done a lot of extremely cool things. Anyway, the point here is not how cool and capable I am with this game, but rather how much the camera during combat and all of the time is just too close. So you need to be able to zoom out a little bit more and have a little bit better of a sense of like who's around. Because what I find is that if I'm not, the camera doesn't do what I want it to do during combat. And all that really means is that I'm finding... Go to my sword. That I'm involved with one bogey, and then other things attack me. I have no idea it's coming, and that's really frustrating. Again, particularly in modern gaming, because I feel like there's so many camera angle things you can do, and so many. Oh, what? So many camera angles and so many. Settings that you can play with to mess with zoom, like how zoomed in you are.
That's your idea.
So, but that feedback's warranted. Okay, that's the stuff that's got right. Of course, the trailer being bad. That's right. It's a bad trailer. That marketing strategy of like your protagonist selling the game by saying, "What are these dragons?" and maybe I can fly next. Like, there's some good feedback out there about how an advertisement and marketing should be like maybe more plot based and more gameplay based than asking your main character, your protagonist, to market it through their dialogue with the cuff on their hand. Like, I just think that was a mistake. Though, again, I'll say that the dialogue in the ad, I didn't think it was that bad. It's not my favorite thing. It's not bad. And a lot of what I got that I was really appreciative, like 2 particular reviews that I think were really good, were Alana Pierce, who's amazing. You should definitely follow and subscribe. I'll drop a link, as well as the Curious Corduroy, who I hadn't spent much time with until I watched their video about how the cringe had gone too far. And I was like, yeah, like, right. There's so much in there that made sense to me. And again, I'm not saying that people cringing are like 100% wrong. It's more about how far it's gone than it being inherently wrong. Like, some things are going to rub you the wrong way. I have a lot of beef with characters, but I think whether or not a character is redemptive and the story arc all plays a big role, and we just don't know that much about that. So that transitions us to things that are like kind of TBD, or I'm on the fence for. Let's go hang out with some gators, maybe.
A little farther, and you'll be flying.
I'm on it.
Obviously, I've kept the dialogue rate quite high. So the thing that I think, and I think I've alluded to this, I won't spend a lot of time, the Cuff and Frey stuff I'm on the fence about, because I wonder how their dialogue's going to, and relationship is going to evolve and change over time. We're dropped at a particular period where I'm wondering if their sarcasm and quips or what have you.
Possible to escape.
Oh yeah? Well, whoever started that rumor never met me.
See, that...
Convinced you'd have ended up there, eh?
It's interesting what they're playing with here, because, again, you have this sort of British masculine voice who is supposed to be a helpful guiding force, at least in some way. And then you have like this very confident, very self-aware woman, person of color, protagonist who's like willing to like say how it is. Yeah, and people are calling her a B. And I'm just like, wow, man, that's not good. It does not say a lot about
Wonder what happened here.
where we're at. So I think it's TBD with Cuff and Frey, and I think that's particularly important to say, because I think based on what I've seen, there's a chance it's bad throughout the game. So there's that chance, but I also think there's a chance that it actually turns into a really important, heartwarming part of the game, where maybe Cuff helps you out, self-sacrifices, maybe Frey helps Cuff out, there's some vulnerability, friends become enemies, enemies become friends. All kinds of things can happen.
You know, it's such a privilege to witness your intellectual blossoming firsthand.
Hey, I'd be happier in a world where I didn't have to think about this stuff at all.
So I also have the control map on here. you know, the flow and control stuff, I think, is a little TBD too. Once I have a lot more spells and get more time with the spells I do have, my sense is that the flow will be fine. And it will, like it is with every other game, where it kind of all becomes second nature. So if you haven't spent a lot of the time with the game, I'd be real hesitant to, I guess I'd just be real hesitant to start throwing shade.
Did pretty good that time.
Reasonably, yes.
So I don't know. I think the controls are a little bit TBD, as is the combat. For the most part, I'm sold on. Because of the variety and vulnerabilities, and because it looks really great, and adding, it's the combat combined with the parkour, which is the whole reason I wanted to play this game. It's not Spider-Man, but there are some things that she does without webs that are very cool and fun to watch. And her evasive maneuvers are great. I mean, they're really cool in a lot of ways.
What shall we do?
All right, we're nearing on the end here. Basic side missions. So one of the pieces of feedback was that the side missions were a little basic, not too spicy, feel a little bit like the land. They're kind of like, there's stuff there, but there's not a lot of substance. Again, I liked, one of them was kind of a time trial, where you needed to eliminate a certain amount of enemies in a certain amount of time, and then you get a rating. And I like stuff like that. I mean, it might not be good as Muspelheim in God of War, which is amazing, particularly on Give Me God of War difficulty. But yeah, I'm hoping for a little bit more from side missions. I wonder what else we'll get. I didn't hate them. Again, I think part of what made me kind of like TBD on a lot is the story. Like, how do these missions tie into the story, and how can I make sense of why this is important based on the story? Because again, you are getting dropped in here. I just don't think that's that big of a problem. All right, y'all. That's pretty much all I have. Again, I think it's not that this game is the next Elden Ring, and it's not that this game, that I am a fan of this game in a way that I think I'm trying to get any sort of like reputation of. Like, this game is one that I am sort of excited about, sure, but it's not, I'm not like defending it. I think there are a lot of questions, and I think there are things that could be done better, particularly the environment. So don't misunderstand me. Also, I'm not calling every cis het man who's out here doing reviews a sexist pig. I think there are questions we need to ask ourselves, particularly as masculine identified people, when reviewing black women, female lead characters who are confident and talk back to the cuff and talk back to people, quote unquote, and think about the double standards around, like, well, do we hold male characters to that? Especially all from one ad that was admittedly very bad.
Whatever you do, don't get bitten.
I won't.
As if I choose for that to happen.
Uh-oh, someone else is on me, not even... I would like to kick something to send you off with a kick. I think this is going to be it.
Why the hell not?
Oh, yeah. Not the best kick, but man, that is like without a doubt the most satisfying support spell with Sila's magic. Alright, peace y'all. Remember, I'm on my push to 1,000 subs. I hope you got something out of this. I really welcome comments too. If you're like, listen, fanboy, you love this game too much, don't go out like saying people are woke or I'm woke, or like, I don't need any of that in my life. But if you have like some beef with this game and you've checked it against, do I hold other games to the standard? I really want to hear it, because I'm like 90% sure I'm going to buy this game, but like, I think I could change my mind. But yeah, like and subscribe, follow me. So my next videos for Forspoken are, I'm going to do 10 things we learned about combat from the demo, 10 things we learned about traversal from the demo. Those are 2 different videos. 10 things we learned about map, missions, and challenges. 10 things or so that we learned about upgrades. I'm going to change this back to regular. Some things we learned about settings and accessibility, and yeah, some things we learned about like vibes and aesthetics, which again is like the thing that I think hopefully changes the most. Cuff settings. I gotta play with this cuff compass stuff too. Chat frequency default. I really appreciate y'all watching. Please put some comments in. I'll try and remember to link to that Alana Pierce video, which was super good, and that Curious Corduroy one too. Push to 1,000 subs. That's all I got. We didn't do a ton of combat. I did a lot of talking, but you still got to see some of the game, and hopefully the verticality thing in particular, I was able to kind of snuff that out. Is that cool to say? I was able to shed some light on where there is verticality. I'll leave you with that. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon.